Hello, I am C-3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin. Hello, I am C-3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
There is a rescue mission that needs to be conducted, and of course we need to call upon good old-fashioned Mando from the good old days to help take on this very difficult job of rescuing the Twi'lek. Anyway, so Ran, who has a history with Mando, is like, come on in, and he sets him up with Mayfeld, who's Bill Burr, who is not very receptive to having to deal with Mando, and they put together a scrappy team of reluctant stormtroopers, sort of, and they go to rescue that Twi'lek. I got it all wrong, and I'm speaking very very poorly on the subject.
That's totally fine. Mando has landed with the Razor Crest to be able to offer it up for the job. He didn't realize he was offering up the Razor Crest, but Rand specifically wants the Razor Crest to be used.
Right.
Although Mando's not to be the one who flies it. He will have Zero the droid as part of their crew flying it. The Twi'lek, who Mando has a history with, Xi'an, will be on the crew. We're rescuing her brother Quinn. The Devaronian, his name's Berg. He's part of the crew. And then Mayfeld, he's going to be running point. And he was not a stormtrooper, but that's what Mando assumes at the start. Right. They take off to go do a rescue mission. They essentially, Zero takes them through hyperspace, and while they're in hyperspace, Mayfeld notices that Mandalorian has a pet, quote unquote, which is Baby Yoda, and when Zero takes them out of hyperspace, they all kind of bounce around. Baby Yoda gets put away, and the mission starts.
All right, and then once they arrive at the ship to rescue Quinn, I believe it was, basically the team goes through a couple like really great action scenes that I'm sure we'll talk about, eventually rescuing the Twi'lek. Then they find out, Mando finds out that it was more of a setup, a trap for him as well. He gets put into a cell, and then the bad guys attempt to make their mistake. Mando gets a droid to get near the gate and gets himself free, and then kind of gets ready to pick them off one by one.
So there's a sort of haunted house milieu that kind of occurs where the lights get low and there could be danger around any corner. There's a sort of mutiny within our crew of heroes where Mando has been imprisoned and he kind of has to figure his own way out. There is yet another betrayal between the Twi'lek siblings, and Mando is involved with the brother, helps the brother to escape, but then he has to attack all the Bill Burrs, and that works for him. And there's a lot of fake outs in this episode.
Maybe 3 people is difficult to do the summary.
So it's a little difficult, yeah.
But essentially, there is some fake outs as to whether or not Mando is killing them, as he essentially rounds up the team by picking them off one by one, throwing them in the cell that they put him in. He eventually puts Mayfeld in as the last one, approaches Quinn. They have a bit of a stare off, and then Mando takes Quinn back to the station where he drops things off with Ran. He gets his money and his payment. Ran and Quinn hug it out, and there's no questions asked about where the rest of the crew is. Mando leaves. Ran puts in the orders to kill Mando, to shoot him down. Him and Quinn are laughing. Quinn realizes, wait a minute, what is this? It's a tracker, because earlier in the episode, as they were making their way onto the ship, they killed the one other life form who's there, who's part of the New Republic, and he set off a tracker beacon to the New Republic, sending them a warning. Mando left this with Quinn, and ultimately the New Republic with X-Wings flies in and kills the guys who betrayed Mando, and Mando is off scot-free. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so we should welcome back our cousin Mark, who's back for... This is only your second episode you've done with us? It's been a little while. What was the subject matter of your last appearance on the podcast?
Attack of the Clones.
Were you doing Attack of the Clones?
Yeah, the second or third. It was pretty early in.
It surprises me that we had you to talk about a prequel, because you are critical about Star Wars in a way that Ross and I aren't.
That's fair.
We tend to not always agree on everything Star Wars wise, and maybe we had you on to create conflict. I don't remember us like bickering about Star Wars when you were here last time.
I don't think we generally bicker about Star Wars either. I think it's just more so that I evaluate Star Wars as a unit in and of itself.
Yes.
And you and I talk about Star Wars more than any, I think, people are going to talk consistently about the same movies over and over. So ultimately, that rubs off on you in a way.
Yeah.
Mark, you view all movies within the same vein similarly. The fact that there are 5 Die Hard movies, in theory, you would view in a similar line. 4 Indiana Jones movies, you throw those in a similar sort of group to the way you would say that there are, 11 Star Wars movies. It's just parts of large franchises that you absolutely love and are focused on, but they're not necessarily the same. Like, to you, it's kind of all the same thing in that they're movie franchises as opposed to its own almost like lore.
What he means is you're out of your depth, and so am I. So you and I are.
And I'm gonna head out. So thank you so much for having me.
No,
I know what he means, and like, but that's fair. Like, I'm probably view them more as like every couple years now, I get really, really excited for a Star Wars movie, and I see it, and sometimes I'm like, that's fantastic, and sometimes I'm like, I don't. It's fine, whatever, and then I wait a couple of years till the next thing comes out. But
well, you and I have great Star Wars conversations, and interestingly, though, it'll be beneficial to have you talking in the kind of the news section, and because the general news of the week in the Star Wars world it'll be good to have a perspective of somebody whom essentially what I was trying to say is absolutely adores large blockbuster franchise films, especially with great franchises continuing on. Star Wars is just one of those ones that you love. And so it'll be interesting to hear the take of what happens on the screen versus the value of key story points that don't necessarily happen on the screen.
Oh, okay, I get you, yeah.
We'll be talking about that a little bit later on, but to the Mando episode.
This is chapter 6 of season 1 of The Mandalorian. Who directed this episode?
Rick Famuyiwa.
Has he done one so far in this run?
He does the second episode.
Because there really seems to be a stylistic approach to making this episode. On the one hand, it's in almost anyway, not entirely, but it's almost a bottle episode, and that afforded them an opportunity to budget this piece of canon really interestingly. So like the opening sequence is probably really
it looks great,
really expensive. It's beautiful, and then they're able to bring in some pre-existing IP. Like we have what's Rio from Solo called?
He's an Ardenian.
There's an Ardenian who makes a little appearance. I have to figure he cost a few bucks to reproduce for this, but then
although
most
the benefit
of it
is there, he's behind a prison cell, so you only need his head.
That's true. But then so much of this episode, a good 70% of the story of this episode takes place in like interesting lighting, in very frankly inexpensive set pieces, but in doing that, they have deliberately recreated an aesthetic that's existed for Star Wars for 43 years. And so they have the advantage of like a classical look and also budgetary consciousness. Do you know what I mean?
That's really interesting because although the stories are very, very different, and you have the least dialogue episode being the second episode, and this probably being the most dialogue heavy episode, both being done by Rick Famuyiwa, but you make a great point about leveraging familiar surroundings, Jawas, different species that we already know. That's one of the huge wins I have for this episode is that you have Twi'leks, Devaronians. You have someone who was part of the Imperial forces. It's like dark and dingy and grimy. It's super A New Hope. Zero, I believe he is of a very similar, if not the same, droid type as Forlom, which is an Empire Strikes Back droid. So Rick Famuyiwa does a great job of using things that we know within canon so well that blends nicely and allows us to focus on the story, which is kind of an interesting thing, although there are definitely some take-backs in this episode.
Mark, what was your favorite example of what we're describing? Something that exists already in Star Wars. This episode is so amply full of frankly insiders, little self-referential Star Wars tidbits, a lot of them spoken by the great Bill Burr. So what one stands out to you the most?
honestly, the thing that stands out to me the most is just the whole environment of the ship. Like Ross was saying, like it's so A New Hope. And like you were saying for like budgets, it's like, yeah, it would probably be a lower budget, but it doesn't feel like lower.
No.
It's an amazing looking episode. And I haven't rewatched the show yet. I watched it when it first came out.
Yeah.
So this was the first time I rewatched one. And the first thing I was like, oh yeah, I forgot like how great this show looked.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it was interesting because I was right about to interrupt you to clarify which ship you were talking about. And I realized you were almost definitely talking, because then you talked about the simplicity of the Zeton. You guys are talking about the New Republic ship.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it takes an Imperial vibe, which also then banks back to a Republic vibe, because they're all the same thing recycled over and over.
That's right.
But it's also interesting because inside the Razor Crest with all these characters, it feels very Firefly-like, or an episode of Rebels where you have this crew of misfits who's doing a job with inside this tin can flying through the galaxy. It is very Millennium Falcon in that regard. Also a cheap set, but also putting us in a familiar situation once again where we can focus on what's going on as opposed to the surroundings, because it just is Star Wars.
Well, it's both the Lone Ranger and ragtag group of like scrappy misfits all in one, because ultimately he does get kind of marooned and he's left to be lonesome Mando once again a couple of times in this episode.
Mando is his debatably, and there's a couple points in the Deborah Chow episodes in the Taika Waititi finale, but he might do his most badassery in this episode with the taking out of the droids and the shooting them in the head and taking down the rest of the team one by one. I mean, he is so cool. And when he makes it into the horror film with the lights, I love it when he sneaks up on Mayfeld and Mayfeld screams, realizing that, like, shit, no.
This is what I mean. When it's like a haunted house, right?
The whole last little bit is, like we were saying, just for like direction, like the lights are coming down red, and you get the quick flashes of everyone, and just like the pace of everyone's like running scared through the hallways. It's
great scoring.
It's just a really cool feeling for like an episode that started off, I thought, kind of like, okay, like you're saying, kind of Firefly ragtag group of people go down, and I liked it, but then that last third I thought was like absolutely fantastic.
What didn't work for you, Ross?
For me, Xi'an is so fucking annoying.
This is the Twi'lek?
This is the female Twi'lek. And although Quinn, slightly less annoying, more frustrating to look at, Xi'an, although her teeth were sharp and she fucking showed them like every 3 seconds.
She's so Jabba's palace to me. I just
so
don't know.
Obnoxious.
I like Twi'leks, I guess, canonically, but I struggle to see how they're going to transition into live action better than this.
Well, that's the thing, because they portray them animalistic, and that's completely inaccurate. And that's the kind of thing that the other character, like Quinn, it doesn't seem so animal-like.
He's like a gym rat, kind of.
But yeah, he is like a gym rat, and he's stupid, and he's like, he's got a stupid laugh.
Yeah.
His makeup is crap.
Yeah.
And so like, I really can't stand him in that regard. He's got some corny dialogue, although the voice is very menacing, which is good. Xi'an is just annoying in every way, shape, and form. It does not make any sense that Mando would have any time for her, which apparently they have a history, so that doesn't really compute. And she seems to understand that he has a bit of a darker side, so she could not have been more annoying, and he could not have been more frustrating to look at.
There's just something weird about like when she frees her brother and then they kind of like embrace and they put their foreheads together. You just feel really excluded from this. Does that make any sense?
I didn't mind that.
I don't know about that. I think I was just so tired of her by the time, because I'm right there with you. That's the biggest take back of the whole episode was her character. And also I had some problems with some other people on the crew, but she especially was just really annoying. And
what about Barg? Do you have some problems with Barg? Is that his name?
Berg.
The
devil?
Yeah.
Deveronian, yeah.
Kind of like, I just thought any point, and especially in the first half where it was just the crew, talking back and forth, I didn't think it was like that well written. It was very, and this isn't a bad thing, and you guys will think like, Mark loves this stuff, but super 80s action movie.
Yeah, or he's like a less interesting Drax.
Yeah.
He's just kind of that stand-in for this. Like, clearly we're here to see Massachusetts' own William Burr. And then all the other people are just they could have been a little more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I liked the Robot Zero.
Sure.
Yes.
I thought he was good.
You know the voicing, right?
Yeah, Richard Iota.
That was my...
Iowati.
That was my one question. That was my one and only trivia question.
Oh, really?
Brutal episode for trivia.
Oh, I have a fair bit of trivia. Richard Iowati is one of my absolute favorites, and it drove me nuts through the first time I watched it. So I looked that up pretty quick because it was one of those ones I could not place for the life of me.
He's a Q9 droid. I think you mentioned what type of a droid he was a little earlier. He's a
perfect.
Q9 droid. I really like those battle droids, by the way. I mean, they're not battle droids, but I guess they're the next generation. The ones that he
The
takes.
New Republic droids, yeah.
They're so
They were
cool.
really cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big fan of those. You mentioned though the dialogue. What was the good dialogue you guys noticed? I didn't have a whole lot. I had just a couple lines because although there was a lot of talking, it wasn't really standout. And
I mean, Bill Burr being Bill Burr, saying that the Razor Crest looks like a Canto Bite slot machine.
I didn't like that so
Well, this
much.
is what I mean about how it's such a self-referential episode when he makes the basically a Jar Jar Binks joke a little later on. He says maybe he's a Gungan. Is that why
Yeah.
you so don't want to take off your helmet?
Like people wouldn't necessarily know a whole lot about the Gungans unless maybe he's from Naboo or something, or from a central planet. So we maybe find one of the core planets. People have the Boston accent. That's like, I don't know, the Harvard planet.
He's from space, Boston.
I wasn't a stormtrooper, wise ass.
Yep.
That was a good one.
Have that written down too.
What is it? A pet or something?
Right.
Nice family.
Nice family's funny.
Yeah, and are you questioning my managerial style?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, those are the Mayfeld ones I had.
I had this may surprise you, but he's our muscle.
Yeah, okay.
I thought that one was
That is
really good.
that is a good one. Yeah,
It is, yeah. I apparently Bill Burr is no Star Wars fan. Apparently,
he isn't.
He talks about it a lot on the Monday Morning Podcast. He thinks this is for nerds. But the thing about Bill Burr is he is like low key a very good actor.
Yeah.
And likes to act. And so I think he just took a high profile job. I respect it, and I would be happy to see him come back.
Oh, he 100% will be back. There's no reason you don't kill the character.
True.
I mean, you do it somewhat for the Mandalorian as who he is, but we also didn't have a problem with the Mandalorian shooting up Navarro in episode 3, and so
Right. Exactly.
we don't care so much about him taking out the underbelly who are similar to him.
There was a reason it had that last shot of them all in the
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
cell.
They're all coming back.
Another quote we didn't mention. I think it's Bill Burr's quote. Make sure you clean up your mess after he takes out the whole league of droids.
That bugged me, and then Berg like gives him a shoulder bump. Like, you guys, I know you're supposed to be like, but that's just giving away that you hate him. Like, that would make me
They have been kind of like
Yeah.
not warm to him since the beginning.
But he just saved their ass completely. He took out like 5 or 6 droids, and he could not have looked cooler doing it.
no, I disagree because it's made very clear that they are impressed by what he's doing.
Yeah.
They don't have to betray that to Mando personally in order to save face, in order to like not lose their pride a little bit. But we know they're impressed, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, but then it seems like over the top almost. The like, we're like kids on the schoolyard, like, we don't like you, and even if you
That's exactly what's happening here.
it is. It's just, it felt a little over the top to me, especially then that that Berg follows it up with like the body check.
I kind of think the right title for the episode is just like the good old days. It's repeated at the beginning and then at the end.
I wasn't a stormtrooper wise ass was my temporary one.
You like it?
The best line in the episode, in my opinion, is, "What's the look? Is that gratitude?" I think it is. I just think that's great because especially the Mando is constantly portraying. You can see the look on his face even without seeing it the entire time. It's sure as shit not gratitude, though.
Is there anything we can say about Baby Yoda in this episode who has a presence and again is a point of curiosity for who this Mando is ethically speaking with the people he runs into, but like not a huge role in the episode itself.
Not like as a character, but he's there to like add some tension. Like when they find him on the ship, and then they're all kind of passing him around for a minute.
Oh,
And
when he falls on the floor. Oh,
yeah, Jason Sudeikis shot at him. Bill Burr dropped him. He's not doing well with comedians this
This is
season.
very true. And then in the end, he's being approached by Zero, and he very deliberately, Baby Yoda, very deliberately puts up his hands and uses the Force with intention. Like, this is no longer a thing he's like, he's navigating. He makes an effort to attack this thing that he feels threatened by, and he wins. And so that's telling about his Force capabilities, which to this point are still pretty mysterious.
yeah. Well, he doesn't necessarily know what he's going to try and do.
That was defensive, though. It had to be.
It was defensive of sorts, but I don't know if it was necessarily like in an attacking way. But he definitely looks at his hand and is impressed with himself because he thinks he did it. But it's it's some freaking cute that he's just there and he's hiding behind like the corners and like the sacks on the floor and like, oh, you can't see me.
Let's do a little trivia. Like I said, I don't have any more trivia questions, but I apparently have lots.
I have some. Do you have any trivia, Mark?
Yeah, I got 2 questions.
Okay, why don't you start?
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So what planet from the sequel trilogy gets referenced in the opening?
From the sequel trilogy, a planet. I actually don't know. Do you know?
Planet from the sequel trilogy gets referenced in the opening. Oh, Canto Bight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Canobite.
Right.
You were
We said
waiting
that a
so
second
long
ago.
that I was like, oh man, what did I screw up?
No, you got
No,
it right.
I just kept skipping over it, and I could only see JJ planets in my head. Let's see. So, Padawan question. All my Padawans were naming people. So,
Yep.
The night question, I'll give you a handful of night questions. This is my easiest night question, so it's Padawan now. How does Zero track the crew while they're on the Republic trip?
Is somebody bugged? Does somebody? I mean, I know they have that little clicker thing. We didn't talk about the blinker, by the way. Was that thing blinking before? I don't know, Mark. Do you have any idea?
I thought it was trackers they all had.
Yeah, I don't know. Are they bugged?
What kind of trackers?
I don't know.
Not sure.
Bio trackers.
Okay.
Specifically because
They say that.
it's a droid chip, and thus that's how he's able to recognize their
Oh.
signature.
I see. So like some kind of heat sinking radar.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay.
So the only people on the only life forms are in prison cells, or of course the one guy who he says is going to be in that room right before they open the door, and then boom, there's the life form.
Gotcha. Okay.
How many lights are on that tracker fob?
3?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's 3.
Nice.
Do you have any more questions, Mark?
Yeah, I have one more.
Right into the
And,
microphone, bud.
And the devilish guy, his name was Berg, right?
Correct.
Which famous cartoon character does the actor who plays Berg also voice?
Oh.
And I have a hint.
Okay.
He's also red.
What is the question? What's the answer?
He's Mr. Krabs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that SpongeBob?
Yeah.
I thought it was SpongeBob. I literally only know of Patrick and SpongeBob, though, so I was not going to get it right.
This is a very reasonable question, and I thank you for it.
You're welcome, sir.
Speaking of voice actors,
I don't thank you for it.
Oh, God.
Speaking of voice actors, apparently the Republic soldier, whoever that is voiced by Matt Lanter.
Well, it is Matt Lanter. It's the instance where he's able to be on screen because his voice is too recognizable to be on screen for any longer.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's the voice of Anakin.
There's a few little Clone Wars cameos in this episode because we later on see Dave Filoni, no less.
That's right, and Rick Famuyiwa and Deborah Chow.
Oh, they're the other X-Wing pilots?
The 3 X-Wing pilots are all the directors,
That's
which is great.
cute.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
I have a couple more questions, actually. What is Matt Lanter's character's name?
I just have the Republic soldier. I don't know. John.
Davin. They do say it in the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, they do.
All right.
And my master question, what percentage was the hyperdrive operating on the Razor Crest when Zero evaluates its efficiency?
I don't know. I had no idea. 15%.
That was 40.
67.3.
We were very close.
Come on, guys.
It's another 2019 Star Wars installation that heavily uses death fake outs, which of course was like overly prominent in Rise of Skywalker. And then they lead us to believe characters are dead, and that turns out not to be true. It is gratifying when it happens in Mando because you want to see these characters come back, or at least you want to see Mayfeld come back. But that is becoming a bit of a Star Wars cliche, no?
Yeah, a little bit. Little like, who's the superhero who doesn't kill people?
Batman?
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of them, I guess, don't. But
Yeah.
anyway. I don't
Except
know.
for when they do.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
But there's like, I think Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, I think they've all had arcs that are like, I can't kill anyone.
Well, yes, they develop some kind of moral compass when they actually have the goblin in their clutches, but in order to get there, they had to like take down 3 skyscrapers, and
Exactly.
surely people were inside.
Yes, but
Yeah.
my whole point is it is a little bit of, you could say, avoiding the murders, but there's so much death in this show that I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those weird ones. Like it is a little bit of like, oh come on, you're a little chicken shit because you won't kill anyone important.
Right.
But there have also not been any characters that Disney has kept alive that I wanted them to kill.
Any other observations about this episode? Something else that you wanted to say? Anything that stood out to you, good or bad, about Chapter 6, The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I'll say for good, just kind of again, like, I thought the action was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, both the scenes of Mando taking on droids in the hallway, and like you said, the droid design. And I guess the only other point I had written down was when Mando's is in with the crew with Mayfield and everyone, and they're going towards it. It really reminded me of Predator. And I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's the opening, and they're all flying in to the alien planet, and they're all kind of trying to be the most macho person on board in their little group of mercenaries.
It's interesting you bring up Predator because we keep talking about how this episode has a horror aesthetic, and I think more specifically we are talking about Predator or Alien. Like
Haven't seen either. I don't know.
but space horror and tremendously suspenseful in a way that feels very comparable to this episode.
Well, Star Wars is known for its Mystery of the Black Lagoon style, whereas this is one of the first instances of totally different kind of suspense.
Yes, they've heavily used there's a creature out there, something just touched my leg, but you, the audience, aren't necessarily scared. You're just you're enthralled.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is like, I'm a little tense.
I had Berg also being, as a take back, Berg being a fucking idiot shooting the Most droid and giving away their position.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
For no reason whatsoever, creating like the conflict in the episode from just pure moronic behavior.
When he meets up, when Mando meets up with Ran, and they're like kind of having a moment because they go way back. Ran is like, Mando, is that you under that bucket? I find this frustrating, and I think I'm starting to develop a bit of a frustration with the overuse of the nickname Mando.
Oh, yeah.
Mando is short for Mandalorian. He's wearing his Mandalorian helmet. Like, you only ever seen him in a Mandalorian helmet. Yeah, that's him under the bucket. Like, it's just...
And also, if it's not him, do you think the Mandalorian is also not nicknamed Mando by somebody?
Well, I'm guessing every Mandalorian is called Mando by somebody because people just know to call him Mando.
Yeah.
It's clearly like a universal nickname for Mandalorians.
But I mean, they are rare, but at the same time, it doesn't stand up.
And by the way, that reminds me, a pretty funny sequence when they're like, well, they're supposed to be the greatest warriors in the galaxy. How come they're all dead?
Yeah, that one was pretty good.
It's a fair point.
Zero's line, it appears as though comms are not functioning, therefore you cannot hear me. That was kind of funny.
Just keeps talking.
I thought the guild station was really cool, though. I thought it just had a great aesthetic to it. It obviously the grungy look, but even from when you could see the X-Wings kind of taking it down. Mayfeld's cool as shit shoulder gun.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That is awesome. I love that.
The little backpack gun. That was
basically like,
cool.
I'm going to go around the corner for you. I'll do that.
Periscope gun. Kind
Yeah,
of.
that's a great name for it. Berg getting the horns cut off, though, when it had the double closure of the doors, that was very cool, though, when he like raises it up, like he's got it because he's so strong, and then they do the second one. That was a good bit of humor. I
also kind of enjoy when he just body tackles the hovering pod. Like they try a corner and there's just like a big like air conditioning just floating, and he just like takes it down.
And then after that, chucks it into the next one. And...
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yep.
Overall, I find him kind of wasted space in the episode, but he has some moments.
I did really like when he was fighting Mando, and he used the flamethrower on him, and obviously he looks super devilish.
Yeah.
And just this, like, the flame kind of disappears and the smoke's all around him. Like, I thought that was a fantastic shot, too.
So is there
It's
any
a good bit of, like, yeah, I like that too.
Is there any canon about his character? Like, is he like flame retardant he's from some kind of fire planet?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's been in the cantina since A New Hope, so that's what I like, and being able to do circling things like that. It's always nice to see, and this episode really did a good job on that, I felt like.
Anything else? Should we get to the news?
I'm good getting to the news. I mean, the episode was engaging, but...
not super consequential, but it was fun. It was nice to see a bunch of fresh faces.
I think it might be the longest episode in the season.
Yeah, it was over 40.
Yeah, which would be better. I would like to see more 40-minute episodes.
I don't know, there's something about the brain chemistry of 34 minutes, 36
it's
minutes.
Good, yeah.
I love it. It's just, for some reason, that's really working for me in these episodes.
Or maybe give me 10 episodes of Mando Season 2, if they're going to be 32-minute episodes.
All right, well, why don't you take the lead for the news? What's going on? There's always something.
Alrighty, so we'll get to the bigger things last, because there'll be larger discussion points, or I guess not so much bigger things, but or bigger things, but shouldn't be bigger things. But Mando Season 2. So as we were just talking about that, Robert Rodriguez and Bryce Dallas Howard will be doing some directing in season 2.
Rodriguez.
Yes. So it's not confirmed as to whether he's doing episodes or just bit parts, but Robert Rodriguez and Bryce Dallas Howard will both be doing some directing. We also know Favreau from a while before. It will also be doing some directing. And then it was also reported that James Mangold would be doing directing for this season.
Yeah.
And then he came out and said, that's not true. Good luck, Rob and Bryce, though.
He's probably going to be doing Indy 5, so
He is doing Indy 5.
He'll be busy.
So there may have been some crossing of, Lucasfilm just hired 3 directors, and then they said 2 of them, and then one was James Mangold. Maybe they just assumed they were all one and the same. I don't know how this kind of thing, I don't know how Variety, I don't know how all of these guys get this one wrong. 2 of the 3 of them right, though, but it's interesting because it seems like it's the case with the 2 of the 3.
Mark, are
James
you
Mangold was attached to Obi-Wan, right? Or was it the Boba Fett movie? Like, he's been attached to Star
Boba
Wars
Fett.
before. Yeah.
But Boba Fett.
Boba Fett?
I forget which one it was. It's either the Obi-Wan one or the Boba Fett one. Josh Trank was attached to the Boba Fett one also at a point, and a few different people were attached to the Obi-Wan at a different point. But yes, James Mangold at a point was attached to one of those. I can't remember which one.
Mark, are you a Robert Rodriguez fan? Do you have feelings about him?
Yeah, I really like him. I mean, I only saw like the Spy Kids ones when I was little, but then like...
Well, sure.
Well, no, but then after
Didn't
going
we
back
all?
and watching his old movies,
Yeah.
I really like Desperado and I forget the Dusk Till Dawn. Like, he does some really good action ones, so it seems like a good fit.
And Scrappy and Raw. Like, it's kind of actually great for The Mandalorian.
Especially with someone reining him in.
Yes.
That it's not just too...
Oh, it's not going to be
Crazy.
It's not going to be machete.
No,
but
yeah.
but also a little.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Like Spy Kids, I watched it recently for a bit of fun, and it's one of the worst written movies ever.
It's crazy that it was a mainstream movie.
It is so bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a ridiculous amount of creativity and inventiveness that goes into that movie. The fact that it's a spy movie, so you need to come up with these cool gadgets. There's also like weird biochemistry and cloning and like shit that's very Star Warsy.
Yeah.
So as much as there's potential of maybe needing some script doctoring, I'm excited by this one.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think it works no matter how good or bad a movie he makes. It's always like at least kind of interesting because it always has really just out there weird ideas. So like you said, someone just kind of reining him in a bit, and it's going to be really cool, I think.
It really, I think it's kind of an icebreaker for the opportunity of other like highly stylized singular directors to have their small crack at doing something Star Warsy, which is still pretty much a blank canvas. Like The Mandalorian, you still have a lot of room to do whatever artistic thing you might want to do for one 35-minute episode. Like, I know it's a kind of an extreme example, but like, I mean, because Wes Anderson's not going to do a Star Wars episode, but like, what if he did? Like, what would it look like? Or certainly if Quentin wanted to do it, like, what would it look like?
Fundamentally, the thing that I'm scared about with Star Wars entirely, that is actually my biggest fear about Star Wars.
Stunt hiring
Is
directors?
Wes Anderson
Because-
getting a hold of it?
Well, I mean,
Too many tweed jackets.
Yeah.
but to be honest, yeah, because Kathleen Kennedy has shown herself to be the biggest pro in the world at hiring people prematurely because they're the hottest thing on the market.
That's fair.
And she got lucky because I'm assuming Favreau was involved, so because Waititi came along, but that's another example. Taika Waititi getting a movie. You have Lord and Miller, they got a movie. Colin Trevorrow, you did Jurassic Park, you get a movie. Ryan Johnson, you did all these other things, you get a movie. Oh, we liked you on Last Jedi, you get 3 more movies.
Right.
Game of Thrones, guys, you guys are doing Game of Thrones, you guys get a series of movies. Now
That's
we're making-
arguably the best example of what you're
Josh
trying to
Trank
defend.
as well.
And
Yeah.
Josh
Because he only had like
Trank,
Chronicle and...
all these things, and then they go back on them, and then they fire people, and then they change their mind. And so this is what they're doing with Project Luminous about building a brain trust about Star Wars, the identity of Star Wars, ensuring that maintains consistency, that kind of Dave Filoni, George Lucas overviewed mindset. That's necessary. And as long as that is in place and it has a spine and is actually strong leading the visual mediums of Star Wars, and like the TV and film, then that's fine, as long as that person has a spine. But that person has not had a spine.
Well, okay,
at the moment.
We're kind of talking about two different things, though, because we're talking about Mandalorian episodes, which is definitely different than being given the opportunity to cultivate a whole new universe for Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And also, we're talking about directors like Quentin Tarantino, who's an established, stylized director, who also is very familiar with the sanctity of a property. He's very respectful of that, at least when he discusses it, he is. And he's already, of course, famously been in talks to do Star Trek, which will never happen. But these are not necessarily the directors who are the hot guy right now. They're established film geniuses. The other thing is that Star Wars has shown us recently that you can recapture the aesthetic and the tone of Star Wars while also exploring new genre styles, whether it's a spy movie or an escape thriller, or as we just discussed, a haunted house thriller. Like, you can do all that and still feel like Star Wars.
Yes, and that was the end of my point, was that The Mandalorian is what you do, is you give them an opportunity to show themselves within the framework that has already been structured by the showrunner. And so it at least allows them to see, can this person play inside this even more structured universe? Okay, maybe we can give them a bit more freedom, but then it allows to see that, okay, they can at least do Star Wars. Whereas I think there's been a lot of instances where if we had gotten maybe the final product that Kathleen Kennedy was additionally allowed people to make on certain things, it may have been all over the place. That's why it's really nice to have Favreau in there, because I think he will be able to kind of protect that for certain things that he's involved with, at least.
Anybody we're not talking about at all who is due an opportunity to have their thumbprint put on Star Wars? Who's like an obvious person? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
Well, for like obvious people, my head just goes to like movie nerds and stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if, I know he does Star Trek already, but I wonder what Simon Pegg, because I know he wrote Star Trek 3. And
That's a good point. But
behind the scenes,
but a writer's mind is really important, especially if you're going to like be given a lot of free reign.
He's too close to JJ. That's why I wouldn't want Simon Pegg.
That's fair.
Because he is close friends with JJ, and I believe has been.
He's Unkar Plutt.
Yeah, he is, and he knows a lot of the behind the scenes as to what Star Wars has been in the sequel trilogy, and so I'm curious to know his take on Star Wars at the moment. But I'd be interested in having him back in as an actor as well, because it's not like Unkar Plutt is like, oh, Simon Pegg, we can't have him back.
No,
again.
he hasn't been used up. That's
yeah,
fine.
but I'd like his spin-off. Like, I think that's a prequel we need to see.
And maybe he meets Boss Nass, and it's just like these all like thumb-shaped characters.
Plutt, a Star Wars story. I can't wait to see this
Makes
thing.
more money than Solo.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that wouldn't be hard.
Oh God. All right, what else do we have?
Giancarlo Esposito. I don't know if I talked about this last time. I don't think I did, even though it was in my notes. That he specifically said these quotes. So the prop guys are wondering about me because I was in a bit of a commotion and a bit of struggle with someone else, which I'm hoping you will enjoy. See it. Major epic lightsaber action happening on this show. And I should mention I'm the only character in the first season who was able to be honored with having a lightsaber. So that feels wonderful.
Yeah.
And on the notion of dueling Baby Yoda, well, no way. It ain't going to happen, baby. Anything is possible, and you keep watching. Because although the baby has some incredible power, without having to wield the Darksaber, I think the baby is so curious about what just it is. So you'll be enthused and inspired when you see the scene I'm referring to in season 2. This comes in October. Keep watching.
I don't think it's a great reveal to learn that Baby Yoda's not going to wield a lightsaber. I think we probably could have figured that out.
I think that's pretty fair, too.
Yeah. Kind of relieved, actually. I've never been a fan of Yoda's lightsaber.
But I think this is cool, the notion that there's going to be some lightsaber action. People, of course, assume that means it's lightsaber on lightsaber. It does not say that. Nope. And so that's what's unfortunately the world of news. That's the quote, and thus any headline associating, oh, Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, I know.
Because who in the world has a lightsaber?
Right.
Although there could be an option for maybe some Rebels crossover. Who knows? Which I still think could be down the pipe.
Out of the question, Luke Skywalker ever has any kind of involvement in Mandalorian, even if it's just tangential?
Oh, I think it's very possible, and I think it very well could be the sad ending of the Baby Yoda arc. Ends up going to Luke Skywalker, and then we like, oh, what happened to Baby Yoda? Did Ben Solo kill Baby Yoda?
They wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't do that.
They're not doing that.
Although I will talk a little bit about Baby Yoda in the sense that I've pieced together what what they want him for. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
What do you think?
Well, we'll talk about it in a second.
Okay.
The working title for Obi-Wan is Pilgrim.
Yeah, what does that mean?
This is the Blue Harvest Space Bear title. It's just the behind the scene.
That's not a working title then. That's just what they're writing on the slate.
Yeah, exactly. The one that
Yeah.
they have to.
It's a Western movie reference. It's what
I
they
guess.
call Clint Eastwood and what he'll call people in all those old Fistful of Dollars movies.
It honestly makes me worried a little bit.
Why?
That it's going to be a bit too small potatoes, and that it's not going to resolve anything Darth Vader-esque. And I'm hoping that that's what the rewrites are about.
You're worried that it's going to stay too local to Tatooine?
Yep.
Just based on the word pilgrim? Because that could be a
No.
subversion too. Like, clearly the premise is I want to go here and I'm going to stay here forever.
Yeah.
But obviously something happens that disrupts that plan. That's the whole reason we're telling a story in the first place.
I would believe so, and I don't necessarily think Pilgrim says that by any means, but I think it points it that way, and that's just a belief that I have, a bit of a worry anyway. But that's really all that came from that.
Okay.
Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So episode 2 was out, and that was really good. Continuing the story arc onward. My God, it looks beautiful, and this was a fun episode. It was good. Lots of lightsaber action. Anakin.
Do you watch much Clone Wars, Mark?
I've watched a few episodes before, and then Disney Plus put out like the top 20 episodes you need to get ready for the new season. So I'm going to watch those.
I've been slowly working my way through those. What I'm finding, for better or worse, is Clone Wars is not for everybody. It's not for every Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it's just not for you.
It's not necessarily not for me, but it's no Star Wars as far as I'm concerned.
That's fair. There will
Yeah.
be some arcs that are incredible, but they will seem very different from, because you also have to keep in mind it is the prequels too.
Yeah.
And so it is a very different era, and it's so clean and polished.
And it's largely led by a different brain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no. George Lucas is very, very heavily involved in Clone Wars.
Yep.
Not Rebels, but Clone Wars. He was quite.
How heavily is
involved.
George involved in this final season of Clone Wars?
It would have been written with him in
Yeah.
the sense that him and Filoni probably wrote this a long time ago.
Okay.
And he's also the first credit in the credits.
Right, that's true.
By more than based on the blank of George Lucas. It's created by George Lucas.
Okay, cool.
The world, apparently, at least the geek world and the Star Wars world, and everybody has now clued into what was in The Rise of Skywalker and are now understanding the entire plot. And
Isn't this frustrating when people decide that there's some new revelation even though they saw the movie 2 months ago? And
Yep.
we've been talking about it on this podcast ever since.
It drives me nuts. And this one drove me nuts more than anything. The movie, the first time you watch it, okay, Dominic Monaghan says something about cloning and the Emperor and dark magic. And then you're waiting the entire movie for the actual full explanation. It never comes.
No.
So the only explanation we have is one sentence: cloning and dark magic. How did the Emperor come back? Well, we don't know, but we know it's cloning and dark magic.
Yeah.
What happened? How did he come back? There's a novelization. It says he came back through cloning and dark magic.
What the hell? Plus, just the fact that he clearly has a different body than when we last left him.
Well, that's the thing. The Ian McDiarmid is painted white with white. It is not the electrified Emperor Palpatine. This is Sheev Palpatine regrown as an old man with a rotting corpse. This is a rotting cloned corpse of the original DNA of Sheev Palpatine. This is not a clone of the deformed, electrified Emperor that had his own lightning shot back on him from Mace Windu. This is that soul put into a grown body that was grown to look like the Emperor, but had no ability to contain how strong he was because it was a weak clone body.
I would argue, aside from Dominic Monaghan's line, it's made even more clear by the giant cylinder that has the Snokes in it. It's clear we're cloning old bodies in here.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
But there's also potential, and I think because the fingers is the thing for me that I've not been able to get over. His fingers were the only thing that didn't look right in The Rise of Skywalker, Emperor Palpatine, before he becomes himself again at the
They're
end.
like zombie fingers.
Yeah, but the rest of him is just white and rotting, and his eyes are obviously, there's no pupils, they're just white and milky as well. But his fingers, they look sewn up, and they're long and pointy, kind of a little like Snoke's, and Snoke's disgusting and barely formed in the appropriate way. And so there's a chance that Snoke was just an early draft of Palpatine that he was using because he was trying to grow back his body, and it was coming in deformed ways, because in the novelization, which pages have been leaked about, and that's where all these revelations are coming about, it does talk that this crude clone body is not capable of containing the Emperor's power.
Interesting.
And that Kylo looks closely. There are vials all like equip into this like electric chair holding the Emperor, and one of the vials is almost empty and the rest are empty.
Okay.
And so it is clearly, this was like, he has almost nothing left keeping him alive. He's at the Sith loyalists trying to grow his bodies, but he is just barely hanging on. And then there's the kind of, Kylo is able to see it and identify, oh, this is a clone. And he also recognizes the technology from his studies of the Clone Wars.
I'm guessing the vast majority of Star Wars fans are perfectly clear on the fact that there's some cloning happening in this movie, and that's what's led to the reemergence of Palpatine. I think it's the blogs. I think it's the headline writers trying to clickbait people. They're trying to generate some kind of like reveal as if it is one.
True, but there is a lot of reaction to said reveal from people who should know, and a lot of people seem to think that this is a retcon. That like, oh, they weren't happy with the description, so the novelization's coming out to explain things further and provide a different sort of reaction.
Talk to me about the other retcon, the one that I mentioned to you before we started recording.
In just 1 second, but it drives me fucking nuts because the book was written based on J.J. Abrams' probably initial 5-hour draft of The Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
It's not pure conjecture. Also, we're going to get some deleted scenes that probably have these things. Mm-hmm. And we know that there is a longer version of this movie that explains the movie.
Yeah.
It is not necessarily a different version, but the movie was ruined on the editing floor. I've said it 100,000 times, and this is just further proof of that.
Okay. Now, that's not the headline I saw today.
The other one
because
would be all about the kissing.
How do you feel about the kiss, Mark?
Assuming we're talking about the same-sex kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker?
No. Ray and Ren. Ray and Ren.
I thought that was the only one that had controversy.
Well, no, not really. In fact, that one didn't have controversy.
It was overblown.
It was drummed into clickbait. It was nothing, and it was.
That's why I was wondering if it was coming back around.
Yeah, no.
The lesbian kiss had controversy because they cut it out for the Chinese market.
Okay, but
that's, not much.
That's man-made controversy. They did that to themselves.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, we're talking about Ray and Ren, which is controversial only because every major romantic decision made in these movies is always controversial.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
That they kissed at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
I was fine with it. Honestly, the only reaction I had to it in the theater, which Ross let me know I was wrong to have, was that I was like, oh wait, like she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Isn't Anakin Palpatine's son? Because I still thought that Revenge of the Sith theory about him being his dad was canonized, and I was like, oh, that's... Why are they going back into...
I mean...
Actually, I'm going to say you're wrong on that one. I have to actually capitalize on your taking a jab on me. Even if he was, though, Palpatine would never have been Anakin's biological father. So that never would have been an issue in that regard. Sorry, I just want to throw that in.
No, except for that, there is still something indirectly...
It's not incest.
No, but it is kind of like weirdly incesty because the whole movie is leading up to Rey is... Yeah, she's a Skywalker, though. And
also,
so
it's Star Wars, so you have the Luke and Leia kiss already.
What's beautiful about it.
I see what you mean in the sense that because she adopts it. I would actually more so... And it's very weird. Let's actually get into the explanation of what the text says. And so what the text says is that the kiss was of gratitude almost as opposed to being romantic.
That's stupid.
Which is very stupid. It was put in at the end, and this was something that has been... It's very believable, and it's been heavily put out there that the kiss was a very late addition because the chemistry was too good and just clearly required it.
There was always sexual tension between them.
Exactly.
Ever since Last Jedi.
And it was... The way it's described in the book, I don't think is necessarily the accurate way. I do maybe think there was some misinterpretation because it was so lately added in that this could be a bit of writer misinterpretation. And gratitude, I think, is pretty fucking stupid.
It's a weird word to use.
But they do show that Rey is acknowledging finally meeting Ben.
Yeah.
That is the part of it that I do like. And I think that's the part that is the better part to focus on. She finally broke him free of the Kylo Ren prison, and she's like, hey, it's the other side of my coin is finally clean.
Well, and these two have been so intimately bonded for this entire trilogy. Now that he's good and they're both good, how can we demonstrate their intimacy in a pure and beautiful way? Well, that's when two people kiss each other. And so that's fine. I'm not saying that they're going to be like boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm just saying, like, we don't need to scrub romance from this just because it angers neckbeards.
Yeah, no, and I thought it was good the way that they, like, Kylo knows that giving the galaxy back Rey is not close to making up for the wrong that he's done.
Right.
But that is the right thing to do, and the light compels him to do it, and the Force compels him to do it. And it's just, I like what you said. Yeah, it's about kind of just focusing on their relationship, because the relationship is the key to it all. It's the whole reason why the movie wasn't really, really bad universally by everybody. Like, these two carried the movie. They must have sore backs.
Totally. Any other news, any big things to talk about this week?
No, that's really it. Just there was so much commotion about this novelization. I'm really excited about the novelization.
It comes out in a couple weeks.
Because I honestly believe it's just going to be a fundamentally better version of of The Rise of Skywalker. It's the same story. It's just going to be the story completed, as opposed to the gaps not being filled in. So it's a novelization that I'm really excited to read. I'm sure there'll be more kind of little learnings here and there. But I think the Emperor being a clone, it was pretty damn obvious, and people need to get over that. It makes sense.
Right. Mark, thanks for joining us this week.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Good chat. We'll have you back when, I don't know, like Ali Wong or John Mulaney does a Star Wars episode or something.
All right, then I'll be in.
All right, for birthdays this week in Star Wars, want to say a happy birthday on... well, actually, today we're recording this on March 2nd. Happy birthday to Bryce Dallas Howard, who's in the director's family now. Monday the 9th, Oscar Isaac. And Ross, we mentioned your birthday last week, but we'll say it again. Happy birthday on Wednesday the 4th.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, for Godacast 1, actually, this works out really nicely because I realize now that I didn't complete my preparation for this segment. I knew I wanted to mention Elizabeth Moss for Godacast 1 because she's in The Invisible Man, which is out right now. But since you mentioned Robert Rodriguez might be doing some Star Wars stuff, if you got to cast one in Star Wars, is it going to be Elizabeth Moss or Danny Trejo?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me at least Antonio Banderas.
Nah, Machete. Put Machete in Star Wars.
Danny Trejo would work, but he's too Danny Trejo.
I don't know, man.
No. 100% Danny Trejo, Watto's cousin.
You want him to be a Toydarian?
Toydarian, yeah.
Okay.
Danny Trejo. Think of that voice. Absolutely. Danny Trejo. I'm going with Danny Trejo as the Toydarian.
What do you think, Mark?
I think they would both fit really well, honestly.
Yep.
I think Danny Trejo, you would have to he would almost be who, and I keep forgetting his name, the Red Devil guy from like the episode of The Mandalorian today. Yeah. He'd be like that type of character, I feel like.
You mean an alien?
He'd be an alien, and he'd be the muscle, and he wouldn't be a huge star of it. But I think he'd be a cool.
I think you're overthinking this. I really think Danny Trejo can be like a guy who fixes speeders. Like, I think he can be just like Danny Trejo.
Mechanic.
But the problem is then he's Danny Trejo.
But I'm not sure that's a problem. I'm not asking him to lead a movie.
It's true. Of people, Danny Trejo isn't going to be the worst person to be like, hey, that's Danny Trejo.
He kind of complements a lot of things.
It's like, I could see him being in the galaxy far, far away. But also, I just am excited about the notion of him being a Toydarian. Elizabeth Moss is a ridiculously good actress, though, and she could damn near be anything. I think she would be better in Star Wars playing a sinister character.
I agree with that.
Someone with potentially just like Palpatine in his prequel phase. Someone who's trying to put on a good show to the world, but is secretly like maniacal.
All right, send along your thoughts on this week's episode of Recorder 66 at Recorder66 on Twitter, Recorder66podcast@gmail.com. Rate and review on your preferred podcast app. If you want to join us for next week's episode, we're going to be watching the 7th chapter, the 7 of 9 chapters?
7 of 8.
7 of 8 chapters. Oh, we're really getting through it.
Yeah, Deborah Chow and Taika left.
Okay, so the penultimate episode.
Two best episodes, in my opinion.
Penultimate episode of season 1 of The Mandalorian. We're going to cover that on next week's podcast. And until we are together again.
One more thing.
Sure.
I said I was going to talk about it, and I didn't.
All right.
The vials that are going into the Emperor.
Yeah.
Those vials is what I believe they were trying to extract from Baby Yoda. So whatever they're extracting from Baby Yoda he's a cloner.
They're trying to clone Yodas.
Well, no. My guess is they're trying to get some form of something that can transfer midi-chlorians that would allow cloned Palpatine's corpse to essentially not rot as fast because it's so powerful in the dark side that they're trying anything, and that the vials of like this silvery liquid pushed into his like robotic chair, that may be what they drew from Yoda, the Baby Yoda.
Okay, that's a good. It's a theory, right?
It's a theory that it kind of made sense right away to me, and I looked it up, and some other people are having it, and so it seems like it makes sense. I've not yet seen a hole in that theory because that would explain a lot.
Definitely, yeah.
It connects things nicely.
Thanks again for joining us, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Sign us off.
May the Force be with you.